The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never seen a day like this. For 3,000 years, the massive crystalline dome had hosted meetings between the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat alone at the human delegation table, her hands folded calmly in her lap. Around her, representatives from dozens of alien species filled their assigned spaces. The air hummed with translators working overtime, converting countless languages into something everyone could understand. At the center of the chamber stood Speaker Zethkari, a being made of living crystal that caught and reflected the chamber's soft light. The Vorthak had held the speaker position for over 5 centuries, and their voice carried the weight of absolute authority when they addressed the assembly. "We gather today to address a matter of galactic security," Zethkari announced, their crystalline form shifting colors from blue to deep purple. "The species known as humanity has reached a critical threshold." Sarah kept her expression neutral, though inside she felt a chill. She had represented Earth for 15 years, ever since first contact had brought humanity into the greater galactic community. In all that time, the Council had never called a special session about any single species. The speaker continued, "Our analysis shows that humans possess dangerous traits that threaten the stability we have maintained for millennia. They are aggressive, unpredictable, and refuse to accept limitations on their expansion and development." A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing various human activities throughout Council space, ships exploring dangerous regions that other species avoided, human traders negotiating deals that broke traditional patterns, human scientists asking questions that made other researchers uncomfortable. "Observe their behavior," Zethkari said, gesturing to the images. "While other species respect boundaries and follow established protocols, humans constantly push limits. They settle on worlds we deemed unsuitable. They attempt technologies we consider too risky. They form alliances that ignore our careful political balance." Sarah watched the display with growing concern. The images weren't showing human crimes or aggression. They showed human curiosity, innovation, and determination. To her, these seemed like positive traits. To the Council, they apparently represented a threat. Representative Quinth of the Collective spoke next, their words carrying the unified voice of their hive-minded species. "We have calculated the probability of human-caused disruption to galactic peace. The result is 73.4% within the next 500 years. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Other species nodded their various heads, tentacles, and sensory organs in agreement. Sarah realized this wasn't a debate or discussion. This was a trial, and humanity had already been found guilty. The ancient architect representative, a being so old their species' name had been forgotten, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "We have faced this challenge before. Species with excessive drive and ambition have threatened galactic stability throughout history. We learned long ago how to address such problems." Sarah's blood ran cold. She had studied galactic history, and she knew what the architect was referring to. Several species had undergone what the Council called behavioral modification protocols in the distant past. They had emerged from the process calm, peaceful, and completely lacking in creativity or ambition. Zethkari's form shifted to a harsh red color. "Humanity will submit to behavioral modification within 30 standard days. This process will remove their aggressive tendencies, their destructive curiosity, and their refusal to accept proper authority." Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady despite the fear building inside her. "What exactly does this modification involve?" "Genetic adjustment to reduce adrenaline production and risk-taking behavior," the collective representative replied. "Neural modification to increase respect for authority and reduce questioning of established systems. Chemical treatment to eliminate what you call wanderlust and the urge to explore beyond designated boundaries." "You're talking about changing who we are as a species," Sarah said. "We are talking about making you safe," Zethkari replied. "Safe for yourselves and safe for the galaxy. You will retain your intelligence and your ability to contribute to galactic society. You will simply lose the dangerous impulses that make you a threat." The Luminar representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystal matrix, pulsed with soft light as they spoke. "Consider the alternative. Unmodified humans will inevitably cause conflicts that could destabilize entire sectors. Wars will follow. Millions of lives will be lost. Is your desire to remain unchanged worth such suffering? Sarah looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Every face, no matter how alien, showed the same expression of certainty. They truly believed they were making the right choice. They saw humanity's drive to explore, to question, to push boundaries, as a disease that needed to be cured. "What if we refuse?" Sarah asked. The chamber fell silent. For several long moments, no one spoke. Then Zeth Kari's crystalline form shifted to black. "No species has ever refused behavioral modification once the Council has deemed it necessary," they said. "But if humanity chooses to reject our offer of peaceful correction, we will have no choice but to implement corrective intervention." Sarah didn't need to ask what that meant. The Council had vast fleets and weapons that could reduce Earth to ash. They had technologies that could block human access to hyperspace, trapping humanity in their home system forever. They had the power to end human civilization with minimal effort. 30 days, Zeth Kari repeated. Submit to modification, or face the consequences of continued defiance. The session ended with no further discussion. Sarah watched as the alien representatives filed out of the chamber, many of them showing what passed for satisfaction among their species. They had solved another problem, eliminated another threat to their perfect order. Sarah remained seated long after the chamber emptied. She thought about humanity's journey to the stars, the excitement of first contact, the wonder of discovering they weren't alone in the universe. She thought about human children who dreamed of becoming explorers, scientists who pushed the boundaries of knowledge, artists who created beauty from chaos. She thought about what humanity would become after the Council's modifications. Peaceful, certainly, stable, without question, but would they still be human? Her personal communicator buzzed with an encrypted message from Earth. President Harrison wanted an immediate briefing. Admiral Torres was recalling, all human ships to defensive positions. Dr. Vasquez had urgent research to share about the Council's modification process. Sarah stood and walked slowly toward the chamber's exit. Behind her, the holographic display still showed images of human activities throughout the galaxy. Ships exploring unknown regions, colonies thriving on impossible worlds, humans living, working, and dreaming among the stars. In 30 days, the Council expected humanity's answer. Sarah suspected they would be surprised by what they heard. As she left the chamber, Sarah caught a reflection of herself in the crystalline walls. She saw a human being, flawed and imperfect, driven by curiosity and hope. In 30 days, the Council expected her species to give up everything that made them who they were. Sarah smiled grimly. The Council was about to learn something important about humanity. They didn't give up easily, and they definitely didn't like being told what they could or couldn't be. The message she would carry back to Earth was simple: prepare for the impossible. Humanity was about to face a choice that would define their future among the stars. The emergency session of the United Earth Council, convened 12 hours after Sarah Chen's encrypted report reached President Harrison. Representatives from every nation, colony, and space habitat gathered in Geneva, their faces grim as they absorbed the gravity of the situation. President Harrison stood before the assembly, her silver hair catching the light as she addressed humanity's leaders. The Galactic Council has given us 30 days to submit to what they call behavioral modification, or face military intervention. Ambassador Chen will provide the details. Sarah took the podium, still wearing her formal diplomatic attire from the council session. The exhaustion of hyperspace travel showed in her eyes, but her voice remained steady as she explained what had transpired. They want to change our genetic structure, modify our neural pathways, and alter our brain chemistry, she said. They believe our drive to explore, our questioning nature, and our refusal to accept limitations make us a threat to galactic stability. Admiral Torres, the grizzled commander of Earth's space fleet, slammed his hand on the table. Genetic modification? Neural alteration? They're talking about lobotomizing our entire species. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, had spent the journey from her research station compiling disturbing data. She activated a holographic display showing brain scans from various alien species. I've been studying the neural structures of our galactic neighbors for years, she said. Look at these patterns. Every species in the Council shows identical modifications to their brain structure. The creativity centers are suppressed. Risk assessment areas are enhanced. The regions responsible for questioning authority have been effectively disabled. A murmur of horror rippled through the assembly. Colony Representative Jackson from Mars leaned forward. Are you saying they've all been through this process? Not all, Dr. Vasquez replied. But every species that showed signs of excessive curiosity or independence has undergone modification. The Zephyrians were modified 800 years ago after they began exploring beyond their assigned sector. The Kalari submitted to the process 6 centuries ago when they started questioning council policies. President Harrison studied the data with growing alarm. What happened to them afterward? They became model citizens, Dr. Vasquez said bitterly. Peaceful, obedient, completely lacking in innovation. The Zephyrians used to be renowned artists and musicians. Now they produce nothing but technical manuals and maintenance reports. The Kalari were brilliant philosophers who wrote works that inspired their entire sector. Their last philosophical text was published 500 years ago. The weight of this revelation settled over the assembly like a heavy blanket. They weren't being offered a choice between modification and death. They were being offered a choice between death and becoming something that wasn't truly human anymore. Prime Minister Okafor of the African Federation spoke first. We need to consider our options carefully. The Council's technology is far beyond ours. Their fleets could destroy every human settlement in a matter of days, could they? Admiral Torres asked. Or is that what they want us to think? All eyes turned to him. Torres activated his own display, showing tactical assessments that had been classified until this moment. For the past 15 years, we've been studying Council military capabilities, he said. Yes, they have impressive ships and advanced weapons, but they haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Their fleets are designed for peacekeeping and patrol duties, not combat. Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead researcher at the Luna Defense Institute, nodded in agreement. We've been developing technologies based on human approaches to problem solving. The Council species share their knowledge freely because they assume everyone will use it the same way, but we don't think like them. She brought up technical specifications that made several representatives gasp. We've developed cloaking systems that don't just bend light, they bend space-time itself. Our new hyperspace drives don't use the standard jump points that Council ships rely on. We've created quantum communication systems that are completely undetectable by their monitoring networks. President Harrison stared at the displays. How long have you been working on these projects? Since first contact, Admiral Torres admitted. Call it human paranoia, but we never fully trusted that we were safe. We've been preparing for the possibility that our new neighbors might not always be friendly. The revelation that humanity had been secretly developing advanced technology sent another wave of whispers through the assembly. Representative Singh from the Indian coalition raised his hand. If we have these capabilities, why haven't we shared them with the galactic community? Dr. Kim exchanged glances with Admiral Torres before answering. Because we learned something important about our neighbors. They don't innovate anymore. They haven't developed any genuinely new technology in centuries. They take existing knowledge and refine it, but they never create anything truly original. We realized that human creativity and innovation were actually valuable commodities, Torres added. So we kept our best work to ourselves while sharing just enough to maintain good relations. President Harrison began to pace as the implications sank in. So we have the technological capability to resist the Council's demands. The question is whether we should. Chancellor Weber of the European Union spoke up. The ethical implications are staggering. If we fight, billions could die. If we submit, humanity as we know it ceases to exist. The debate that followed was intense but brief. Representative after representative stood to voice the same sentiment. They would rather face annihilation than surrender their humanity. Finally, Dr. Vasquez stood once more. There might be a third option, she said quietly. What if we don't fight them and we don't submit to them? What if we simply leave? The room fell silent. Admiral Torres was the first to understand what she meant. Complete withdrawal, he said slowly. Abandon all our positions in Council space. Recall every ship, every colony, every citizen. Disappear completely. Is that even possible? President Harrison asked. With our new technologies, yes, Dr. Kim replied. We could evacuate every human settlement in Council space within weeks. Our new hyperspace drives could take us to regions the Council has never explored. Our cloaking systems could hide entire fleets. The idea was audacious, unprecedented, and completely insane. It was also completely human. President Harrison called for a vote. The result was unanimous. Humanity would withdraw from Council space entirely rather than submit to modification. Admiral Torres was already making calculations. We'll need to coordinate the largest evacuation in human history. Every colony, every outpost, every trading vessel. It has to be simultaneous or they'll try to stop us. What about our allies in Council space? Sarah asked. Species that have worked with us, traded with us, formed friendships with us? We'll have to leave them behind, President Harrison said sadly. We can't risk exposure by trying to explain what we're doing. As the meeting broke up, representatives rushed to contact their home territories and begin preparations. The next 30 days would determine humanity's future among the stars. Dr. Vasquez lingered as the chamber emptied. Do you think we're making the right choice? She asked President Harrison. The president looked out the window at the stars visible in Earth's night sky. The Council wants to take away everything that makes us human. Our curiosity, our drive to explore, our refusal to accept that something can't be done. If we lose those things, are we still worth saving? She turned back to Dr. Vasquez with determination in her eyes. We're about to show the galaxy what happens when you try to cage humanity. They're going to learn that some spirits can't be broken, only freed. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Centauri trading hub. Commissioner Veltar, a veteran Vorthak administrator who had managed the busy commercial station for 60 years, noticed that human traders weren't arriving for their scheduled deliveries. At first, he assumed it was a minor delay. Humans were always punctual, but space travel occasionally presented unexpected challenges. By the third day, however, every human merchant vessel was overdue. By the fifth day, Veltar was genuinely concerned. He sent inquiry signals to the human commercial fleet headquarters in the Kepler system. The automated response was polite but unhelpful. All scheduled deliveries are being revised due to operational changes. Updated schedules will be provided soon. What Veltar didn't know was that the human merchant ships weren't late. They were gone. Every vessel had received encrypted orders to return to Earth immediately, abandoning their cargo routes and trading contracts without explanation. Captain Maria Santos of the merchant vessel New Horizon was one of hundreds following these orders. She had spent 8 years building relationships with alien customers throughout the sector, but the recall message was clear and urgent. All human civilians are to return to Sol system immediately, the message had read. No exceptions, no delays. Use stealth protocols if necessary. Maria had never heard of stealth protocols, but her ship's computer apparently had. When she activated them, her vessel seemed to vanish from the normal hyperspace routes. Instead of the standard jump points that all galactic traffic used, her ship slipped through space using pathways she didn't know existed. Similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems. Human colonies that had thrived for decades suddenly went dark. The agricultural worlds that supplied food to entire sectors stopped their shipments. Mining operations that provided rare minerals to galactic industries fell silent. Dr. Kexani, a luminar scientist studying stellar formation in the Vega system, arrived at the human research station to find it completely abandoned. The building stood intact, equipment neatly stored, but every human researcher had vanished without a trace. Most peculiar, Kexani reported to his superiors. The humans left no indication of their departure. Their research data remains, but all personal effects are gone. It's as if they simply evaporated. Speaker Zethkari received these reports in his private chambers with growing irritation. The council had expected several possible human responses to their ultimatum. Desperate negotiations, military preparations, or panicked surrender. They had not expected humans to simply disappear. Run long-range scans of all human settlements, Zethkari ordered his intelligence division. I want to know what they're planning. The scans revealed something impossible. Human colonies weren't destroyed or abandoned. They were genuinely empty. Every structure remained intact, but there was no trace of human life. More disturbing, there was no sign of how entire populations could have been evacuated so quickly. Council intelligence estimated it would take months to evacuate even a small human colony using standard transportation methods. The humans had apparently done it in days, moving millions of people without leaving any detectable trace. Quinth of the collective found this particularly troubling. Their hive mind processed information faster than any individual consciousness, but they couldn't calculate how the humans had achieved such a feat. We are missing critical data, they reported to the emergency council session. Human transportation capabilities appear to exceed our estimates by several orders of magnitude. Admiral Zorek of the Vorthak Enforcement Fleet was tasked with locating human military vessels. His sophisticated sensors could track any ship using standard hyperspace technology. But the human ships seemed to have vanished completely. "It's not possible," he told his bridge crew. "Ships cannot simply disappear from hyperspace. The energy signatures alone should be detectable from light years away." His science officer, a young Vorthak named Keleth, had been studying the problem for days. "Admiral, what if they're not using standard hyperspace?" Zorek's crystalline form flickered with annoyance. "There is no other method of faster-than-light travel. We would have detected any alternative system." "Perhaps," Keleth suggested carefully, "the humans developed something we haven't seen before." The suggestion was heretical. The Council had mapped every possible approach to FTL travel over millennia of research. The idea that a species as young as humanity could develop something new was absurd. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Human ships, colonies, and installations throughout Council space were simply gone. Not destroyed, not hidden, gone. Ambassador Sarah Chen's final message to the Council arrived on day 7 of the human disappearance. It was broadcast on all emergency frequencies, ensuring every species in the galaxy would hear it. "To the Galactic Council and all member species," Sarah's recorded voice began, "humanity has considered your offer of behavioral modification. We respectfully decline." There was a pause, and then Sarah continued with words that would echo through galactic history. "We will not submit to having our nature altered to suit your vision of order. We will not allow our curiosity to be suppressed, our drive to explore to be eliminated, or our questioning of authority to be silenced." Zeth Kari listened to the message with growing fury. The human was not negotiating or pleading. She was stating a simple fact. "Therefore," Sarah's voice continued, "humanity is withdrawing from Council space entirely. We thank you for the knowledge and friendships we have gained during our time among the stars. We wish you well in your future endeavors." The message ended with a statement that left the Council speechless. "We are going home." In the days that followed, Council search teams combed every system where humans had maintained a presence. They found empty facilities, abandoned equipment, and no trace of where humanity had gone. The economic impact was immediate and devastating. Human trade routes had connected dozens of systems, moving goods that other species couldn't or wouldn't transport. Agricultural worlds that relied on human food shipments faced shortages within weeks. Worse, the human withdrawal had exposed how dependent the galaxy had become on human innovation. Equipment designed by human engineers began failing without maintenance. Computer systems programmed by human technicians developed glitches that local experts couldn't fix. The Kalari Collective, a peaceful trading confederation, sent a formal inquiry to the Council asking why humanity had vanished. They had developed profitable partnerships with human merchants and were confused by the sudden disappearance of their business partners. Zeth Kari's response was carefully crafted to avoid blame. Humanity chose to end their participation in galactic affairs. The Council respects their decision. What Zeth Kari didn't mention was that the Council had no idea where humanity had gone, or how they had achieved such a complete withdrawal. For the first time in millennia, an entire species had simply walked away from Council authority. Dr. Lithara, a collective researcher specializing in social dynamics, submitted a disturbing report to the Council leadership. The human withdrawal appears to be inspiring similar movements among other species. The Zephyrians have recalled their ships from 3 sectors. The Mirin Confederacy has suspended all new agreements with Council-affiliated groups. For 3,000 years, the Council had maintained order through the implicit threat of their overwhelming power. No species had ever successfully defied them, because no species had ever found a way to exist outside their reach. Humanity had changed that equation. They had proven that it was possible to simply leave, taking their skills, their trade, and their innovations with them. As reports continued to flow in of empty human facilities and vanished human populations, one question haunted the Council chambers. If humanity could disappear so completely, what else were they capable of? The humans had said they were going home. But where was home for a species that had spread across dozens of star systems? And what were they planning to do once they got there? Speaker Zethkari stared out at the stars, feeling something he had never experienced in 5 centuries of leadership: uncertainty. Humanity had walked away, and the Council was beginning to understand that they might have made a terrible mistake. 6 months after humanity's disappearance, the cracks in galactic civilization had become impossible to ignore. What began as minor inconveniences had grown into system-wide failures that threatened the stability the Council had maintained for millennia. Commissioner Veltar's trading hub in Centauri, once a bustling center of interspecies commerce, operated at 30% capacity. The sophisticated logistics networks that humans had designed and maintained were breaking down without their oversight. We never realized how much they did, Veltar confided to his assistant during their daily status review. They didn't just trade goods, they solved problems we didn't even know we had. The Vorthak engineer nodded glumly. The automated systems are failing faster than we can repair them. The humans programmed efficiency improvements that we don't understand. Without their maintenance protocols, everything is reverting to baseline operation. Similar conversations were taking place throughout Council space. On Kepler Station, the advanced atmospheric processors that humans had installed were producing increasingly toxic air. The local Kalari engineers could keep them running, but they couldn't optimize them the way human technicians had. Dr. Keksani faced an even more fundamental problem at his research facility. The humans had asked questions that pushed his team to examine stellar formation from completely new angles. Without their constant challenges and alternative perspectives, his research had stagnated. "We've published nothing original in 4 months," he reported to his department head. "We're simply refining data we collected before the humans left." This pattern repeated across every scientific institution in Council space. Human researchers hadn't just contributed their own work. They had sparked creativity in others by approaching problems differently. The military implications were becoming equally serious. Admiral Zorek's enforcement fleets had grown comfortable with human patrol ships handling the more dangerous missions. Pirates and raiders, once deterred by the unpredictable tactics of human vessels, were growing bolder. They fought differently, Zorek explained to the Emergency Military Council. "Our standard protocols assume enemies will behave rationally, following established patterns. Humans expected their opponents to be irrational, and they planned accordingly. Without human innovation in defensive strategies, several outer rim sectors were experiencing increased piracy. The Council's peacekeeping fleets, designed for civilized conflicts between rational species, struggled against enemies who didn't follow the rules. But the most disturbing development was political. 3 species had formally requested to suspend their Council membership, citing concerns about the organization's treatment of humanity. The Zephyrians, who had maintained perfect compliance with Council directives for 8 centuries, submitted a formal letter questioning the modification protocols. For the first time since their own neural adjustment, they were asking uncomfortable questions about Council authority. "We wish to understand," their statement read, "why humanity was deemed dangerous for possessing traits that we ourselves once valued. Were we not better before our modification? Were our songs and stories not worth preserving?" Similar stirrings were occurring among other modified species. The Kalari Collective had begun excavating their pre-modification philosophical texts. The Mirran Confederacy was experimenting with artistic forms they had abandoned centuries earlier. Speaker Zethkari convened an emergency session to address what Council analysts were calling the humanity crisis. The chamber that had once buzzed with confident discussion now felt heavy with uncertainty. "The situation is deteriorating faster than our models predicted," Quinth of the Collective reported. "Economic disruption from the human withdrawal has affected 47% of Council trade routes. Agricultural shortfalls are projected to reach crisis levels within 8 months. The ancient architect representative spoke with their characteristic bluntness. "We underestimated humanity's integration into galactic systems. They were not merely participants, they were catalysts." Representative Thylon of the Kalari rose to address the assembly. "My people have begun asking questions that trouble me. They want to know why we no longer produce the philosophical works that once made our culture famous. They ask why our art has become so practical." Zethkari's crystalline form shifted to an agitated orange. "Your people underwent modification because their excessive philosophical speculation was destabilizing regional politics. The process was necessary for galactic stability, was it? Tylan asked, and the question hung in the air like an accusation. Or did we simply find it easier to manage people who didn't question your authority? The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. No council member had openly challenged the modification protocols in over a millennium. The fact that Tylan was asking these questions at all suggested that something fundamental was changing. Dr. Lix-Ara, the council's chief xenobiologist, presented data that made the situation even more alarming. Analysis of modified species shows gradual degradation of creativity and innovation over time. The initial modification suppresses these traits, but the effect compounds over generations. She activated a holographic display showing genetic and neural patterns. Species that underwent modification centuries ago show significantly reduced capacity for original thought compared to their pre-modification ancestors. The process doesn't just change individuals, it changes the species permanently. The implications were staggering. The Council's solution to dangerous innovation was creating races of beings who couldn't innovate at all. They had traded temporary stability for permanent stagnation. What about humanity? Asked Representative Mordan of the Luminar. They obviously developed capabilities we didn't detect. How did they advance so far without our knowledge? Admiral Zorik reluctantly shared intelligence reports that the military had hoped to keep classified. Human technological development accelerated dramatically after first contact. They appear to have used our shared knowledge as a foundation for innovations we never imagined possible. He showed sensor readings from the areas where human ships had vanished. These energy signatures don't match any known FTL technology. They've apparently developed forms of space-time manipulation that our physics models say are impossible. The revelation sent another wave of unease through the assembly. If humanity could develop impossible technologies, what did that say about the Council's understanding of scientific progress? Where are they now? Zethkari demanded. Zorek's form dimmed with embarrassment. We don't know. Our most advanced scouts have found no trace of human activity in any known system. They appear to have left our region of the galaxy entirely. The Council faced a crisis unlike any in their history. For 3,000 years, they had maintained order by ensuring that no species could challenge their authority. The modification protocols had eliminated dangerous innovation, and their overwhelming military power had deterred rebellion. Humanity had shattered that system by refusing to fight and refusing to submit. They had simply left, taking with them proof that alternatives to Council authority were possible. Worse, their departure was inspiring other species to question the benefits of Council membership. The carefully constructed order that had seemed so permanent was beginning to crumble. Representative Vel Nash of the Mirren Confederacy stood to address the chamber. My people have voted to withdraw from all Council territories and establish independent colonies beyond your jurisdiction. We no longer believe that your version of peace is worth the price you demand. Similar announcements followed from 3 other species. The Galactic Council, which had never lost a member through voluntary departure, was watching its authority dissolve. As the session ended in chaos, Zethkari realized that humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been their advanced technology or their military strength. It had been their example. By walking away with dignity, they had shown others that the Council's power was not absolute. The humans had said they were going home, but they had left behind something more dangerous than any weapon, the idea that freedom was possible. For the first time in millennia, the Council faced opponents they couldn't modify, negotiate with, or intimidate. They faced species who had learned from humanity's example that sometimes the most powerful response to oppression was simply to walk away. 2 years after humanity vanished from Council space, Speaker Zethkari stood before the assembled representatives in a chamber that felt emptier than ever before. 12 species had withdrawn their membership, following humanity's example of quiet departure rather than violent rebellion. The galaxy's most advanced civilization was dying not from war or catastrophe, but from simple abandonment. We must locate humanity, Zethkari announced, their crystalline form now a dull gray that reflected their desperation. Our projections show complete social collapse within 50 years if current trends continue. Admiral Zorek activated a star map showing the results of 2 years of intensive searching. We have deployed our most advanced scout ships to regions beyond the galactic rim. They have found evidence of massive construction projects using technologies we don't recognize. The holographic display showed images that made the assembled representatives gasp. vast space habitats that dwarfed anything in council space, terraforming projects that had transformed barren worlds into gardens. Most shocking of all, clear signs that humanity had not only survived their exodus, they had thrived. These structures show engineering principles that violate our understanding of physics. Admiral Zorik continued reluctantly. The humans have apparently made breakthroughs that render our technology primitive by comparison. Dr. Lixara added her own disturbing discoveries. Analysis of the construction materials suggests human colonies are producing resources at rates that should be impossible. They appear to have solved problems in energy generation, matter conversion, and environmental control that our species have struggled with for millennia. Representative Thylon of the Kalari leaned forward. How is this possible? 2 years ago, humanity was classified as a developing species with limited technological capabilities. We were wrong, admitted Quinth of the Collective, their words carrying the weight of their hive mind's collective analysis. Humanity's true advancement was hidden behind deliberate misdirection. They allowed us to underestimate them while they developed capabilities far beyond our own. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had threatened to modify a species that was already more advanced than their own civilization. Dr. Kexani, who had traveled from his research station specifically for this session, shared the most significant discovery. We found something else in the outer regions. Humanity is not alone. The star map shifted to show a vast region beyond the galaxy's edge where dozens of species had established colonies and trading networks, species the Council had never encountered, or had dismissed as too primitive to matter. They've formed what appears to be a loose confederation, Dr. Kexani explained. No central authority, no modification protocols, no imposed order. Just voluntary cooperation between species who share certain values. What values? Sethkari asked, though they dreaded the answer. Innovation, exploration, and individual freedom, Dr. Kexani replied. Everything the Council considers dangerous. The Confederation's existence represented everything the Council feared most. A society where dangerous questions were encouraged, where species retained their essential natures, where progress came from chaos rather than control. Worse, it was working. The preliminary data suggested that the Confederation's member species were advancing faster than any civilization in Council history. Representative Morden of the Luminar raised the question everyone was thinking. If they're so advanced, why haven't they attempted to contact us? The answer came from an unexpected source. A communication array in the chamber activated, and Ambassador Sarah Chen's voice filled the room for the first time in 2 years. Because, she said, you never asked nicely. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives realized they were in direct communication with humanity's missing diplomat. Security systems activated automatically, attempting to trace the signal's origin, but the communication remained stable and untraceable. Ambassador Chen, Sethkari said, fighting to maintain composure. Humanity's disappearance has caused significant disruption to galactic stability. Sarah's response carried a note of gentle amusement. Galactic stability or council control? They are the same thing, Sethkari replied automatically. Are they? Sarah asked. Because from where we're sitting, it looks like your version of stability required turning every species into pale copies of each other. That's not stability, that's stagnation, Representative Thylon spoke up. Ambassador, my people have begun questioning the modification process. Were we better before the changes? There was a long pause before Sarah answered. I've seen recordings of pre-modification Kalari philosophy and art. Your ancestors created works of such beauty and insight that they inspired species across the galaxy. You were extraordinary, and now? Thylon asked quietly. Now you're safe, Sarah replied. Peaceful, productive, and safe. But you're not Kalari anymore, not the way your ancestors were. The truth hung heavy in the chamber. The Council's great achievement, 3 millennia of peace and order, had been built on the systematic elimination of everything that made species unique. Dr. Lixara leaned toward her microphone. Ambassador, we've detected that humanity has made significant technological advances. How did you achieve such rapid progress? Sarah's answer was simple. We didn't modify ourselves. We stayed human with all the messy complications that entails: curiosity, stubbornness, the refusal to accept that something can't be done. You wanted to take those things away from us. Those traits cause instability, Quinth protested. Those traits cause progress, Sarah corrected. Yes, they're dangerous. Innovation is always dangerous. But without them, you get exactly what you have now. A society so safe and controlled that it can't adapt to change. Zethkari's form shifted through several colors before settling on deep purple. What do you want from us, Ambassador? We want you to stop, Sarah said simply. Stop modifying species who don't think the way you do. Stop forcing your vision of order on others. Stop believing that your way is the only way. And if we refuse, Sarah's response was delivered with quiet certainty, then you'll continue your slide into irrelevance. The galaxy is bigger than council space, Speaker Zethkari. There are thousands of species out here who never accepted your authority, who never submitted to your modifications. The holographic display activated again, showing the true scope of the Confederation. It stretched across regions the Council had never explored, connecting civilizations they had never imagined. We're not at war with you, Sarah continued. We don't need to be. We simply offer an alternative. Species who want to remain themselves, who want to grow and change and sometimes make mistakes. They have somewhere to go now. Representative Velnash of the Mirren Confederacy spoke up. Would humanity accept us back? My people wish to undo the modifications we accepted. The Confederation doesn't accept or reject anyone, Sarah explained. We're not another council. We're just neighbors who help each other when asked. As for undoing modifications, we've made some progress on that front. The implications were staggering. If the modifications could be reversed, if species could reclaim their lost natures, then the Council's entire system of control would collapse. Zethkari made one final attempt to salvage the situation. Ambassador, surely we can reach some accommodation? Return to Council space. Share your technological advances. Help us maintain galactic order. Sarah's response carried a note of sadness. We tried that, Speaker. We offered cooperation, cultural exchange, mutual benefit. You responded by demanding we surrender everything that makes us human. She paused, then continued with gentle finality. You made your choice 2 years ago. You chose order over growth, control over freedom, fear over hope. We chose differently. The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. For the first time in their history, they faced a civilization that was not only beyond their control, but had no interest in controlling others. In the weeks that followed, more species announced their departure from council territories. The great exodus had begun, inspired by humanity's example and drawn by the promise of a different way of life. The Galactic Council would survive, but as a shadow of its former self. The age of imposed order was ending, replaced by something messier, more dangerous, and infinitely more alive. Ambassador Sarah Chen, now elderly but still sharp, stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, humanity's first major construction in Confederation space. Around her, human children played alongside young members of dozens of other species, all growing up in a galaxy where being different wasn't just accepted, it was celebrated. The Council had wanted to change humanity to fit their vision of perfection. Instead, humanity had changed the galaxy by showing that perfection wasn't the goal. Growth was the goal. Change was the goal. The endless, beautiful, chaotic adventure of conscious beings reaching for something better than they were. Humanity had walked away from the Council's offer of safety and control. In doing so, they had walked towards something far more valuable, the chance to remain themselves while helping others do the same.